Hey everybody, welcome in to this edition of Midweek. I'm Owen with Heights Church out here in Prescott Valley. Today we're talking about this idea of what's your exodus? We all have an exodus that needs to happen. So we're going to talk about that here for the next few minutes. But first, if you don't know who we are, you stumbled into this corner of YouTube and aren't familiar with us, we are from Heights Church out here in Prescott, Arizona. We have services in person Sundays, 8:30 and 10:30. We also have services Sundays online every week at 10:30 and 6, and a bunch of other ways to connect in person and over the internet. So wherever you are, you can connect with us. You can always check out our website. We're at heightschurch.com. So midweek, as you know, if you've been part of this in the past, is a time where we take what came down from Sunday and just kind of walk that out into our daily life and daily experience. And this past Sunday, we had Pastor John up, and he was talking through the story of Moses and Exodus. And we want to take that idea and then translate it into action steps, talking about our Exodus as we look for God's presence and at work in our daily lives. So to get more into that topic, I'm going to bring in some guys you recognize. I think you guys have all been on Midweek before. We got Pastor Matt Crosswhite with us. We got Kenneth. And as always, Mr. John Challenor with us, our lead pastor. So,
hey, buddy.
How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing good. If you hear any parade stuff going on, John is literally at the side of the Veterans Day parade route.
It is happening.
You putting us in that festive mood for Veterans Day. And that's a great time. We do also want to be sure to say a word of thanks and recognition to our veterans. We've served in the past. You currently serve as a member of our armed forces. Our gratitude to you knows no bounds. We appreciate you, your service for our country. And if you are a family member of someone who serves, we know you carry a heavy load, and we remember you today especially. We pray for you. We express thanks and gratitude for you. So, and that's really this idea of the freedoms we enjoy, like because of their sacrifice. I mean, I think there's actually some pretty strong tie-ins to this idea of the freedoms we enjoy as followers of Jesus, the ability to walk out of that Egypt thanks to the freedom that's been purchased for us by Jesus. So just providing more context for our talk today. And veteran, we express thanks to you. So guys, first of all, John, you were telling us about, you got some veterans in your background.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about before we jumped on. Yeah.
Yeah. So my father-in-law is a veteran, and then my granddad was a veteran. So, and both very different wars, different settings, different circumstances. But yeah, I was telling you guys the story of my grandpa, and who knows, I was a kid when I heard it, but this is how I heard it. So this could be 0% accurate or 100% accurate. But I remember he got shot, but it was diving into a bunker. And so he was shot in the buttock. And, if you're going to take one, that's probably a good spot to take one. But yeah, he had crazy, like, just remember even as a little kid looking at him as like a hero for the stuff he'd been through and seen and gone through. And then, hearing bits and pieces of my father-in-law's story and just amazed because I obviously don't know him in that context at all. Like since I've met him, he's general contractor, works extremely hard, good, honest, God-fearing man. And so the context of him as a young guy drafted in, heading off to war, like it just, my brain can't even connect those two people, but I know that's his story, and he carries scars to this day. And yet he also, he's just been for me, one of those people that when we talk about veterans, instantly my mind goes to, like, he just gave of himself and has sacrificed for the good of us all. And so it's just a beautiful, beautiful story. But yeah, Crazy, man.
Yeah, that's amazing. It is really hard for those of us who haven't been part of the armed forces to, kind of wrap our mind around exactly what that entails, especially those who serve in wartime or in the weird seasons we've had these past few decades of, the in-between conflict. It's not really war, but the conflicts we've had around the world. And so many that do bear scars, a lot of physical and then a lot of emotional scars too. And so it's just something that's hard for us to wrap our minds around, all that they've been
Well,
through.
and just even like for me, it's been a learning experience coming, obviously English background, much different context of what honoring veterans looks like, and even walking alongside veterans. And so for me, even just since being in Prescott and especially at Heights and the phenomenal veteran family we have at Heights, and just hearing stories and, like you say, hearing what they carry to this day. I think of soon to be elder Charlie Kuhn, and just hearing his journey, and my gosh, man, you talk about sacrifice and you talk about a man of integrity, and yet still to this day, like that sacrifice continues on to this day, and just grateful. And there's many others that's their story, and that then step into ministry in a variety of ways. It's just beautiful all the way around, but just very grateful. I think that's probably my own journey, is learning just what gratitude really looks like in that setting, because it's so far removed from me, but just super grateful.
Yeah, good word. Well, that's actually a nice little connection to Sunday. We had a good special time to kind of recognize our veterans, of course, but then the message, John, that you brought from Scripture.
Can we pause and just acknowledge that you did the fourth verse from memory? It wasn't on screens anywhere. I mean, come on.
I had some patriotic teachers, man. So people don't know, man. National Anthem's got 4 verses, and the fourth one's the best. I actually think comes out pretty strong, talking about why we have the freedoms we do, and it's thanks to the people that stand between the dangers of war and our homes, and it's a credit to God who's given us freedom in Christ, and then freedom in this country. And it just makes me, when I reflect on it, makes me not want to waste a day living in the amazing country we live in. I mean, we have so many options in front of us, so much freedom, not only as pastors and, but also just as individuals, to just be able to go and do wherever we want to go, whatever we want to do, is incredible. So that's where Veterans Day, I love it for that fact, that I just think, man, just a reminder, let's not waste a second living in this beautiful place, in this beautiful country, because it's a hard-won freedoms that we enjoy. So let's make the most of it, Yeah, but
it's a good word.
But back to, I know it probably wasn't your intention, John, but that tie-in with this story of Moses and the people, the children of Israel who are stuck in slavery in Egypt, and Moses' part in how God pulls them out of Egypt. It's pretty awesome. So that message, of course, is online. Encourage you to go check that out. It really is worth your time. Great message, rich, lots of scripture. There's some meat on the bone there. So go find it. But John, for those who, haven't, or they missed Sunday, or maybe just a way to refresh memory, what are some, when we're talking about Moses and his story, what are some of the couple key things that stand out to you looking back on Sunday?
I think instantly the fact that God is in control of the story. That when you see, like, you jump into Exodus and it's like, oh man, these are the people that God has said are going to be blessed, and here they are in slavery, and that slavery grows to the point they're crying out to God, and I think overwhelmingly what comes within him writing that story is the presence of God. That it's very clear that he's with this massive crowd of people, but he's also with the individual in the wilderness, which is Moses, and just that connection point of God's presence And I think one of the things that I just enjoyed, that I don't know that I did a good job communicating on the weekend, but the intricacy of writing the story about the whole, but still capturing the story of the individual, and they kind of bounce back and forth as you work through it. And I just, for me, that it's encouraging, like that God, especially, you know, looking at the church and the season we're in and country and everything else, and going, God, man, you not only do you have your eye on the whole, but you also have your eye on the individuals, and you're walking and writing both alongside, and they intertwine. And I think there's just something really special about that. So that came out in the weekend. And then the other thing that came out in the weekend was just God stating who he is, that he actually, when he uses the phrasing "I am" in the context that it's in, this idea of being actively present, and actively present showing up in that context as he hears them, he sees them, he moves towards them. In Moses' case, he meets him personally. And, you know, just this intimacy that is developed between him and Moses of conversation, that this is a God who shows up and allows Moses to respond with, well, you're telling me to go because they need rescued, but like, if I show up, who sent me? What do I tell them? You know, and it's kind of this back and forth of conversation that is beautiful in that context. And but just this whole idea kind of was built around Egypt too, and that Egypt, one of my favorite phrases that I found leading up to the sermon was that Egypt is what happens when sin gains a head of steam, and essentially then systems are built off of that. And what happens is just people are oppressed, dehumanization comes in, the brutality of how you can treat another human, and just kind of capturing that idea of Egypt and getting out of Egypt and exodus from this just tyranny, and recognizing that it was all designed to destroy them. It wasn't designed for their good, and it was for essentially evil to grow further, and to see God step in and set them free. You know, the rest of the story, we didn't get to that yet, but the rest of the story, setting them free, and then coupling that to, and that was the kicker for me, was coupling it to our journey, that, man, that's the gospel, that sin wants to build up a head of steam, and Jesus has stepped in and set us free, and we don't have to be slaves to it no more. And so I think that for me is the big, like, as a believer going, I don't have to be a slave to Egypt. I don't have to be a slave to sin. And it's my choice. Like, I'm leaving Egypt. So anyways, I think that's, nutshell, ties it all.
And even
in a roundabout way. I don't know. Without preaching the whole thing again.
When you tied it to the Egypt within us, for me, that clicked in my head. I don't know if you exactly said it like this on Sunday, but you just referenced the dehumanizing, and it was to oppress them. When the Egypt within me stirs up, it, to an extent, dehumanizes those around me. I become the king of my kingdom, and everybody else is less than. So I'm less careful with my words. I'm more slow to listen, quick to speak, quick to get angry. And it's oppressing the people around me if they're not doing what Matt and his kingdom wants them to do.
Oh yeah. Well, and then it dehumanizes yourself too, right? I mean, you're basically feeding the, you know, that the nature, the part of us that's destroying who we are and who we're created to be. You know, so it's like the stronger that, like, twisted, warped, ugly side of us gets, I mean, the more dehumanizing it is. It's taking us further away from what we're created for, and who we are created to reflect, you know. So it's pretty powerful. I love, John, the thing that hit me now in your recap is something I think I miss it because, like, to your point, Matt, I am by default so self-focused that the story is about me. Like, the story of my life, my day, it just by default goes to, how does this affect me? What's the, you know, how does this look on me? Am I getting what I want? Like, it just naturally go there. And so I find myself missing the amazing truth that God is working to bring his presence to me. Like, God is so above me, so much greater. I mean, he's the word that the theological term is he's transcendent. I mean, everything that we are and could be, he exceeds it by like infinite amount, right? And yet here's God like talking to Moses, and he's, and he's shoehorning himself into conversation, into a bush, his presence. He's working to lower himself, the humility of God, to lower himself into a conversation with a human is just beyond me. So, and that's, again, the theology term is the immanence of God. Like, God makes himself present even though he's so much greater than us. Mm-hmm. And that's shocking. And then like to put on top of all of that, John, like when God introduces himself to Moses, like you said, he uses the term is the I am, like he literally is like, I'm present. That's how he's introducing himself, is the presence. I'm here. And I'm always in the moment that you're in. I'm in this. I'm not, I will be, I'm not, I was, it's I am here. Mm-hmm. And that is just, I mean, you can't even, we could spend hours trying to unpack all of what that means. It's incredible.
What's crazy too is, and I didn't get to this weekend, God hears the cry of the oppressed. He's concerned about them to the point where I'm going to rescue them. And then he goes, so now go. And I'm like, he didn't need to use Moses. He didn't need Moses. Moses on the far side of the wilderness. And it's exactly what you're talking about, like that God would humble himself to go, man, I could solve this in a moment.
Yeah.
But I'm going to walk this journey with you, Moses, because I care about the intimacy, and I care about the growth, and I care about that you see me, and I care that you reflect me. Like it was one of those where I was like, oh my gosh, why? Like
for real, right? I mean, that's
right.
literally the whole like story of the Bible. This is all optional for God. Think about it. I mean, he didn't have to create anything. I mean, from the very first verse, Genesis 1:1, where God created, that's a choice he made. It was not necessary. And then everything he's doing to reveal himself, whether it be Moses, whether it be Noah, whether it be, even up to the point of Jesus himself, completely optional. He did not have to. And yet, for some reason, he wants to have the experience with us, with me. Like he wants to have the experience of, let's walk through the valleys of life, the mountaintops of life, the unsolvable questions of life, the celebrations of life. He wants to walk through those with me. And that's just, again, completely mind-blowing. It does not make sense. I would not do it that way. Thankfully, I'm not God, but I would be going for the shortest distance between 2 points, right? Like, okay, let's solve this and let's move on. And God's like, no, we're going to wander. We'll wander through this. We'll wait for Moses to, his whole, but I can't. And God's like, yes, you should. I mean, there's this whole dance, Moses. There's the whole 10 plagues dance. I mean, all this is just, and God's like, all about it. Fascinating, man. Fascinating. Kenneth, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say John's message on Sunday really, and then talking about it now, really speaks to me on God's deep desire to have a relationship with us, that he created us, and it says he walked with Adam, and he spoke to them in the garden, and then there's the fall, and you see him show up again with Noah, and then you see him show up even more in a deeper level with Moses, revealing himself, like you said, like just intentionally being a part of it when he could have just snapped his fingers and did whatever he wanted to do. And then that bleeding into, him sending his son to be with us in the flesh and to minister to us, and then going even further and giving us the Holy Spirit to live within us, that there is this continuing drive to have a deep, intimate relationship with us. And it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it really makes you question, like, are my priorities lined up with God's? Because clearly God's willing to go to all kinds of, I mean, from a human point of view, confusing, like, circular paths that we go down. Like, it's not point A to point B. I don't know any person who's followed Jesus that's felt like, oh yeah, we just went point A to point B. Jesus came in my life, cleaned it up, and now I'm just on this highway. It's like the interstate from LA to Phoenix. Like, man, we just out there and never, right? Never. So what's that about, right? I mean, because I come to God and I think about problems that I want him to solve for me, or like I want him to make, the path simple and straight and clear. And then God seems almost never interested in that. Like, he has these other priorities, Kenneth, like you're saying, where he wants relationship is leading the way. Like, it's going to sound a little strange maybe, but it's like a romance almost, right? Like, where it's the whole, the dating and all of this stuff. You have this, girl that you fall in love with, and maybe she hasn't fallen in love with you yet. I won't say that's my story, but, possible, right? And then you're trying to, like, talk her into, and you're having all these ups and downs of the relationship. And in the end, that builds something amazing and strong. You have this, like, deep bond, And I wonder, I mean, it's a lot more of a kind of a romance with God and us than it is like a, group project where we're all trying to, assemble the parts, build the thing, move on, right? And again, mind-blowing. Why is God like that? I don't know. It's just built into who he is. And I feel like that's something I would do well to think more about as I go about my day. Is like, am I putting the relationship part first, or am I in project mode?
The picture that's playing out in my head as we're having this conversation. Do you guys remember the very end? I don't remember if it was the end of Men in Black 1 or Men in Black 2, but like the whole universe where this whole film just took place, they zoom out and it's just in this locker in a train station. Like the whole galaxy, the whole world where all these aliens are battling, they zoom out and it's just one locker in all of these lockers in this train depot. Like, that's kind of what's playing in my head. Our little universe, God put us together, and we're in this, from his perspective, in this one little box. He could have a gazillion other projects going on, but it's just this one little spot. And with that, he decided to enter into that locker, enter into relationship with the people of that locker, put himself into a physical form and enter the locker for the sake of rescuing them, simply because he loves them, and simply because the grand narrative that he's telling, he wants them to get to know who he is.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then yet I'll turn right around and think I have it figured out. Why isn't God doing this on hey, I have this worked out. Why is he slow? Why is he late? Why isn't he doing it my way? And you're like, dude, what are you talking about? There's no way that you can know who God is and look at life that way. Like, God doesn't completely have it. And he's on time, and never late, never anything but loving, never anything but totally in control, right? Yeah. Okay, so I got a question.
So one step further on Kenneth's thing.
Yeah.
So then gives the Holy Spirit and then does to us what he did to Moses. I want to rescue everybody, so now go. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, we're like, no.
I love that's one of my favorite historical accounts in the Bible, is Exodus, because as I live out my walk, I can identify and have seen where I have played every character in that story at some point in my walk. I've been Pharaoh, I've been Egypt, I've been Israel in bondage, I've been Moses who's had doubt, I've had those burning bush moments, and yet when I get caught up in the world, I'm like, and I read it from kind of like a third person perspective, I go, how can they do this? How could Moses doubt? How could Israel doubt that God would do this? And then I look and I go, you're doing it every day. You know, like you have, God's not a pillar of smoke in front of you. He's living inside you now, but yet you still act like Israel. You still act like a stiff-necked Pharaoh. So it's just so rich. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh, okay, so you brought something up I was going to ask you anyway in that little comment you made. You talked about having your burning bush moments, Kenneth. Thinking back your lifetime, you know, what was a burning bush moment for you? Like one of those, God stepped in, it was surprising, it wasn't expected, and it changed something for you.
Gosh, there's been a lot. There's been a lot. A singular burning bush moment. I think probably one time was definitely God rescued me out of a moment of addiction when I was at the end of the rope, not expecting him to show up because he had showed up so many other times. And I was like, there's no way he's going to show up. I am deeper and darker than he could reach. That was an aha moment. And then, you know, years after that, calling me out of my identity in same-sex attraction, that was an aha moment of, no, I'm going to show you this new person that I've always intended you to be that you never knew. That was probably the biggest, that you're going to be a different person. 100, you're going to do 180? And realizing there was a completely different life that I had no idea about. That's when the gray started to come in. Moses.
Yeah, Moses had that beard going, man. No doubt he had a little gray in that beard by the time this deal was over.
I don't got that beard, but I got gray.
Hey, at least you got some of that. Some of us, you know,
hey, this is 4 daughters is what that is. Oh man.
Matt, what about those? Kenneth, that's beautiful. It makes me think of that. I think it's 2 Corinthians 3. Paul says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. It's like God's presence brings freedom. Yeah. And just that moment, even for Moses, he didn't know it was freedom yet. He thought he was getting, like, life was getting worse for him, not better. You know, and God comes and says, hey, you're going to go back to the place where you know, things went so wrong before in Egypt. You're going to go back but God's presence bringing liberty.
That's that I am freedom. That I love that John touched on the statement of I am. It's such a declarative, powerful, all-encompassing. Like nobody says that. I am. Like only God can declare that. And it's like that I am freedom kind of thing. It's a freedom that you just can't. It transcends all knowledge. So yeah,
it's beautiful. Matt, what about you, man? You got a burning bush moment?
Oh yeah.
When God stepped in?
Probably one of the biggest ones was I grew up in Northern California, moved to Prescott to go to Embry-Riddle. Started my relationship with Jesus at Heights, sitting in a chair freshman year. Started walking with him through the rest of my time at Riddle. But ever since 7th grade, my plan was to go into the Air Force. And so while at Riddle, I was doing ROTC and did 3 years of ROTC before God closed that door. And when he did, that was very, like my whole trajectory was Air Force and go fly something. So when he closed that door, it was kind of a burning bush moment where he interceded and said, I have a different plan for your life. Much like Moses, he went out into the wilderness. All right, let's just start over as a shepherd in this land that I'm a foreigner. And God shows up and says, I have a different plan for you. So for me, it was God said, we're going to go do ministry. And so we hung a hard right and went toward ministry instead.
Awesome. It seems like, I don't know about you guys, a lot of people I hear their stories about when God intervened for them, and there's this definite like direction change. It's like you almost never see those happen, and it's like God saying, hey, good job, buddy, like keep it up. Like those moments can be there. Sometimes God does encourage us that way, but when you get those burning bush moment, it's oh no, 180 degree, right? I mean, Kenneth, oh, you had some plans. No, we're going in a completely different direction. That's almost a trademark, like God comes in. And that's one of the ways I think, if we talk about trying to discern, like understand, is it God speaking to me? Like, is this God's presence or my own ideas? It's like, if you find yourself only hearing good job, you're awesome, right? You never hear, let's turn that around, right? Whether it be in a moment or in the trajectory of your life as a whole, you may be missing the voice of God, either through scripture, through the Spirit, through his word. If you're not getting confronted and kind of redirected at times, then it's probably a sign you're missing out on that presence, that burning bush. Yeah. What about you, John? I mean, I know you've had some big time life pivots and moments of your life, but when you think about a Moses burning bush level moment, is there something that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. It's interesting as you were saying that. I'm going, yeah, they're all kind of directional. Like all the examples I can think of was like, I'm 19 years old and I'm definitely living in Egypt, and God in his goodness and grace met me through one question, and it put me on my knees and turned my life around. And all the way to a couple of years ago, Cindy's health wasn't good. And so just watching her decline, and as a husband feeling helpless. And I mean, we've been praying and we've been, reaching out and seeking counsel and seeking medical help. And we kind of come to the end of everything we knew how to do. And I just remember we were doing a series on prayer, and I picked up a book. I knew there was a quote in there somewhere, and just kind of desperation looking at it. And for this quote for a message, but desperation of soul, and hit this one page where it says, sometimes the miracles of heaven are only unlocked through prayer and fasting. And it was like, it wasn't an audible voice, but man, in my spirit, it was as clear as a bell. And it was, you need to pray and fast for Cindy, for a miracle. And I did the Moses thing. But God, when you say fasting, what do you mean? Because me, and at this point in my life, honestly, I'd always like done the half fast or gone to something completely disconnected from food, like media or whatever, sports, whatever. And I just felt like God was going, it's food and you need to fast. And so then I started researching. I'm like, okay, I've always used that I'm hypoglycemic card with God. And he's like, no, you are going to do this. So, and it honestly was one of the best experiences of my life. And I just remember very, very clearly, like anchoring in and going, okay, Lord, like I'm going to be obedient. And even to the point, like through that journey, there was I would call them multiple moments where it was burning bush type clarity of, she hates attention. My wife is like, so for the elders to pray over her, she'd always been like, somebody else needs it. I don't, like, not in a prideful way, but just, I don't want their attention and time and effort have to go into me. Like, and I remember reading James. I was going through James in my own time, and I came across, if you're sick, call the elders. And I was like, I'm sitting there at my counter, she's out, and I'm like, okay, well, I think we're supposed to do this. Like, Lord, this seems pretty clear. And she walked in the door and I said, babe, I really feel like God is telling us, and it's very clear in scripture, we need to have the elders pray over you. And no fight, no whatever. She goes, okay, set it up. And I'm like, that's a holy moment, man. Like, and we set it up, and it's crazy story. It's super long, but elders pray over on a Sunday, and Tuesday, in my opinion, a miracle showed up and healing started unfolding. And she's still in that journey of healing, but man, where she was to where she is today, you know, and you just go, man, it's God meeting and God guiding and God walking forward. And I think, like with Moses, I'm with you, Kenneth, there's so many like areas that you can connect, but man, when Moses was obedient, look at the things that happened. And when he took God at his word and stepped in, it's one of my favorites as far as stories go. And there's so many correlations to our lives in Christ. And I mean, it's phenomenal. But how about you, Owen?
Oh man. Yeah, the one that comes to mind right away, and it is like the three of you guys, it's about direction. And it does have to do kind of with the pivot toward like career, moving away from that toward ministry, which is something I never wanted and never planned. So like, I still wake up sometimes, I hope nobody takes it the wrong way, because I love what I'm doing. I love it. I'm in the middle of where I'm supposed to be right now. But I sometimes look and go, I mean, is this real? Am I really a pastor? Like, what happened, right? You just have that, what happened? And it comes from this moment. So, you know, I grew up in a very like super conservative Christian family. They loved Jesus, but it's pretty extreme. And the result was I just got very turned away from like the legalism side of following Jesus. Like, I knew that wasn't how it was supposed to work. I knew it was a relationship, but I didn't know how that all happened. And so I ended up, I went to school, and my goal, I had this thought in my head, like I was supposed to be in ministry, like probably from like 13 when I found Jesus. But then I just basically went, I'm going to pivot away from that. So I had I called it my Jonah phase. You know, Jonah's supposed to go like up here to Nineveh, and he ends up on a boat to the end of the world, going the other direction. And that's kind of where I was at. And so I went to school. I went to school for journalism and media. I wanted to find people who were not Christians. I wanted to be in the mix in the world and have a blast and, you know, make a name for myself. So anyway, long story short, there was a point I was sitting in I was working at a radio station, a sports radio station in Oklahoma City. Cool place, cool job. I was sitting there late at night in the studio, recording some car commercials. I remember it's like just dumb stuff you do for radio. And I had this strong impression that just said simply, you have no business here. And I was like, wow. It's like I knew what that meant. You know what I mean? It was one of those. And again, coming from a background where, you know, hey, church I grew up in, hey, God doesn't just say stuff to you. It's like, so I'm like, okay. But I knew exactly what that meant. And it was this feeling that if I kept on the path I was on, I knew God would still love me, but I was making a choice to just completely move my life away from him. And so that sent me, like, I cannot do that. So that sent me down the path of leaving that job and that career behind, and then seminary, and, you know, and here we are. So one of those clear, I mean, I get goosebumps every time I think about that intervention from God, just saying, hey, not where you belong. And thank God for that one time I had the courage to step into it. It took time, but yeah, that's a crazy story. And here I am. But so that leaves me with one last question for you guys, and then we'll wrap up. But I'm imagining being in someone else's shoes where they're listening to us talk about these moments where God's intervened, he stepped in, he's given direction, and then they're going, how in the world does that happen, right? Like, maybe even, man, I want that, right? Maybe they're thinking, I would love for God to step in and stop me, turn me around, give me hope, give me direction, help me understand my place in the story, help me understand the life I'm in, you know? So I guess just real quick for you guys, I mean, what comes to mind to give someone like tips or help that is looking for God for a burning bush moment? They're looking for God to step in, speak, intervene, change the direction.
I'll go ahead and jump in. Just last night, I did a session of Ascent on the spiritual disciplines or spiritual formations. So my question for that person would be, what are you doing to intentionally sit at Jesus's feet? Like you heard John talk about fasting when he hadn't really done fasting from food before. And that's when a burning bush moment happened for him. So what spiritual formations, what spiritual disciplines are you doing to be intentional to get in front of Jesus, set aside everything else in your heart and in your mind, and just be with him? Are you driving your car around town looking for a billboard that says, hey, Matt, turn here? Or are you doing something to spend time with him and just be his?
It's great. It's practical.
I
Kenneth,
think,
what about, oh, John, yeah, man.
I was just going to say, I think coupled with that for me, like, and I think this is why the Exodus story, and when I heard it for the first time, I heard a speaker say that God always hears the cry of the oppressed. And I went on this crazy, like, search of the scriptures, and who knew, it's true. But just that, like, desperation, that God hears the desperation. And I think for me, there's moments of it, and like Matt saying, being faithful to take that to God and going, God, like, I'm desperate for your voice. I'm desperate to hear and see you. And so I'm going to position myself in a place to hear. Too often we run to everybody we know and hope that they're going to give us some kind of words of wisdom that will fill that void, instead of just going and maybe sitting in the backyard and crying out and seeing what God does out of my own desperation and my own soul sitting before him going, God, and it's dangerous, because once you get in that mode, like, you may end up being a pastor, Owen. Who knew? So
yeah. Careful, people. Be careful. You'll wake up someday and go like, man, how did this happen?
Dude, I swore I wasn't ever going to become a missionary, and did 5.5 years in Canada. So there you go.
Yeah, that's a little pro tip, right? I'm speaking tongue in cheek here, but if you tell God you want to do something, He for sure going to direct you into doing that. So if you really do want God's direction, just say no. Draw that line in the sand, and He'll drag you across it at some point. Kenneth, what about you, man? What do you think?
Just
see God's presence, or see His presence, hear His voice.
To piggyback off what John said, it was those, being at rock bottom, being in those most desperate cries. I often think of David crying out to God. It wasn't any programs, any devotional, I mean, trust me, I searched out everything the world had to offer before I returned to God, but it was those deep soul wailing cries out to God, and it was those hard prayers that were like, expose what's hidden in my heart no matter what it is. Do whatever you need to do, no matter how painful. Like, I'd literally say, if you need to cut off my legs for me to submit, or whatever needs to happen for me to draw closer to you, do it. And it's a I want to say it's not dangerous, but you got to be there. It takes courage and stuff, but God does it. He shows up, and it may not be, like I said, the life I live now compared to what I did before is unfathomable. It's nothing I could have ever dreamt of or wanted, but it's the desire of my heart now. So he does it. It's just, are you ready? And you got to ask for it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, the words that come to mind for me, Kenneth, I mean, you're right on it, man. I think honesty and humility, that's the two, right? I mean, it's honesty where you have this craving, this deep, deep longing to see yourself in your situation as it really is. Like, no more lies, no more faking it, no fronting to God or yourself. Just go, hey, God, show me that. Let me see myself as I am, like you see me. Or, and pairing with that is the humility. 1 Peter says, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So I had a mentor who, early in my years trying to get my feet under me after leaving the media world. That was just a piece of work, man. Just very, very arrogant. It's hard. I know it's hard to believe now, but and Kenneth's like, yeah, I still see it. But he literally came up with to me with that. Said, hey, do you want to be someone God resists? You want God fighting against you? God resists the proud. He gives grace to the humble. Like, dang, okay. So I leave that with you too. I mean, are you someone God resists because you're too prideful? If you humble yourself, God will meet you there, because when you're humble, you're seeing yourself as you are, and you're seeing him as he is, and that's all it takes, because he is so relational. He's here. He is trying to reach out and connect with you through his word, through friendships, through people who love Jesus, through church family. I mean, he's literally reaching out. And if you don't feel that, it's not him. And he doesn't judge for that, but he just waits. So the honesty and the humility will take you far in your walk with Jesus. And his compassion is there. It's always there. It's never too late for him to just reach into your life and appear like that burning bush. Yeah, it's the best. Well, guys, we just burned through a perfectly good conversation here, and there's a lot more we could talk about. Really appreciate you guys and your time, your hearts. Pray for you, pray for our church family to, have that honesty and humility, recognizing God's presence and embracing it, drawing us out of Egypt and in our own Exodus. I love that imagery. I'm carrying that with me all week. I'm on my own Exodus. I'm getting out of here. I love that. So thanks, guys. Much love to you. And church fam, we have love for you too. So we want you to know we're here to connect with you, whether it be through the chat right now in this conversation, whether it be through other ways on YouTube. Throughout the week, we have morning coffee coming up tomorrow morning at 10. And then all weekend long, there are opportunities to connect again, live services, whether it be online for services. If you're in town, you can join us. You're out of town, you can join us. Our heart is we want to connect with you. We want to help you answer that question of how to get God to intervene in your life and how to experience his presence and to let him draw you into the story he's created for you. So let us do that. Check out our website, heightschurch.com. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram, and be sure to subscribe to this thing here so you can catch us next time. With that, we'll see you Sunday, if not before, possibly on tomorrow morning, Thursday morning. Happy Veterans Day to all of you who are veterans. You have our love and respect. And we'll catch you next week here on Midweek, if not before. Have a great one.